There's no emergency clause. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion on the ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
yes,
Lamb.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Yes.
Ordinance 192-23 passes 6-0.
Introduction of visitors. Members of the public will be permitted the opportunity to speak on any issue or concern which pertains to the city during the portion of the council agenda devoted to the introduction of visitors. All comments shall be directed to the chair, and a reasonable time limit of approximately 5 minutes will be imposed. If there's a group, please appoint a spokesperson. Speakers should approach the rear microphone and state their name and address so it can be entered into the minutes. Members of the public will be afforded the opportunity to comment on other portions of the meeting as determined by the chair or by a vote of the majority of council members present. Is there anybody that wishes to address council at this time? It's the last opportunity of the year. Okay. Introduction and consideration of ordinances and resolutions. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules on requiring 3 readings on the following ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance 192-23, 201-23, Resolution 202-23, Ordinance 203-23, 204-23, 205-23, and 206-23, and 207-23.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
I will make a motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings of tonight's ordinance and resolutions as read by you.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to suspend the rules? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
yes,
Lamb.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Ordinance 200-23, first reading.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 200-23 and that it be read by title only and placed before council for discussion this evening as the first of 3 readings.
Second.
In ordinance 200-23, an ordinance amending the Special Planning District Number 1, SPD 1 development guidelines pertaining to the South Course Village. Mr. Dutton.
Thank you, Mr. President. South Course Village Special Plan District, or SPD 1, was established in 1999 for 42 acres at the northwest corner of Worcester Pike and High Point Drive. So this special planning district consists of 2 parts. First is a concept plan, which is broken down into 3 sub-districts, and development guidelines, which are texts that address items such as development standards, landscaping, signage, and design. So we have some amendments proposed to these development guidelines. Just to go over them kind of briefly, there are some proposed changes to uses. The existing uses were limited and outdated. They've defaulted mostly to our zoning code with some exceptions. There's some amendments to signage, some just correct some errors which were in the text, and another allows the main anchor grocery store to have additional wall signs because it's a large building. There are proposed changes to access. The site actually abuts 3 different roads, so there's one access point on Mass Parkway, which is the cul-de-sac that goes back to the Ryan Homes condominium development. One access point on Route 3, which is at the discretion of ODOT. And then there's an increase in access points from 1 to 3 on High Point Drive. The design standards were also simplified in these amendments. The Planning Commission reviewed these amendments at their November 9th meeting and recommended approval. And these changes will also require a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any further discussion on the proposed first reading of the ordinance 200-23? Okay, thank you. Ordinance 201-23, an ordinance amending section 3102.12 and 3105 of the Salaries and Benefits Code of the City of Medina, Ohio, relative to the Law Department Secretary.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President.
Mr. Shields?
The emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it at this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Discussion on the ordinance and the emergency clause. Mr. Huber.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our department has been hit pretty hard with the requirements of the Marcy's Law, which involves frequent notifications to all of the victims in the cases we handle in criminal court. We also frequently have been behind on paperwork and work involving downloading videos because all of the officers in the city department and townships departments and the state highway patrol all carry body cam. We have to review this body cam, download it, and get all of that information out to defense attorneys and defendants. So we've been struggling for the last year and a half, and as a consequence, I've asked the council to make the second secretary in our office a full-time person so that we can better handle the volume. And other than that, I'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any further discussion, either on the ordinance or the emergency clause? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the emergency clause?
Hare. Oh, I'm sorry. Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Ordinance 201-23 passes 6-0.
Resolution 202-23, resolution authorizing the mayor to apply for the 2024 state capital grant for funding to construct a multi-use path known as Phase 1 of the Uptown Loop.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Discussion on the resolution and emergency clause. Mr. Dutton.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a resolution to apply for $480,000 of 2024 state capital grant funding to be utilized to construct a section of multi-use path referred to as Phase 1 of the Uptown Loop. This section would run on the east side of Broadway from the end of the Champion Creek Trail to East Friendship Street. This Phase 1 of the Uptown Loop is identified as a priority in the final draft of our pending City of Medina multi-use path plan and would bring the city closer to connecting up our existing path network. We feel that our application is strong, however, it's likely the city will need to contribute funds or in-kind services to the project, and the emergency clause was requested as the application is due on December 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the resolution and/or the emergency clause? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the emergency clause?
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the resolution?
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Resolution 202-23 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 203-23, an ordinance adopting a new chapter 162 of the codified ordinance of the City of Medina, Ohio regarding municipal income tax.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Discussion on the ordinance and/or the emergency clause. Mr. Durham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the Law Department for looking this over and putting it together. The emergency clause is requested. We actually got it a couple months ago from Rita, but we had to get some clarification from them on what exactly needed to be done and then send everything to the Law Department. It needs to be effective by January 1st. All of this is in response to changes that the state made that we have to be in compliance with.
Thank
By
you.
the way, Rita was not all that helpful with respect to clarification, so.
We're sure glad we have you, though. Is there any further discussion on the ordinance and/or the emergency clause? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the emergency clause?
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Ordinance 203-23 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 204-23, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into the flock safety agreement for the license plate scanning system for the police department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Discussion on the ordinance and the emergency clause. Chief Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. President. Flock Safety has increased the prices to our existing flock license plate reader cameras. However, they have offered to lock in the pricing if we sign a 5-year agreement with them. If we do that, that would save us a substantial amount of money. The emergency clause is requested. The quote is good up until December 30th. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance and/or the emergency clause? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the emergency clause?
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Ordinance 204-23 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 205-23, an ordinance amending ordinance number 4223 passed February 27, 2023, relative to the expenditure to Signal Service Company for the Street Department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields?
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Discussion on the ordinance and emergency clause. Mr. Pacoli?
Thank you, Mr. President. So this request is a result of a motor vehicle crash that happened in 2022 at the intersection of West Smith and Huntington, where there was significant damage to our traffic signal cabinet. So we had temporary repairs made, and then the ultimately new cabinet and repairs were made and replaced and up and running. So the total amount of invoice was $51,024. The responsible party's insurance company did pay. This is the amount that we would like to see the PO increase so we could pay the vendor. And the emergency clause has been requested so we could pay the vendor from the work between 22 and present. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance and/or the emergency clause? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the emergency clause?
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Ordinance 205-23 passes 6-0.
Ordinance 206-23, an ordinance amending ordinance number 221-22 passed December 12, 2022, amendments to the 23 budget.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Durham.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are a lot of adjustments tonight. It's because we're at the end of the year and we have to make appropriations work.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Ordinance 206-23 passes 6-0.
If there's no objection, I'd like to entertain a motion to add ordinance 207-23 to the agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields?
I'll make a motion to add ordinance 207-23 to tonight's agenda.
Second.
Discussion on adding ordinance 207-23. Will the clerk please call the roll on adding ordinance number 207-23?
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Ordinance 207-23, an ordinance authorizing the increase of the expenditure to Connected Electrical LLC for the fiscal year 20 chip rehabilitation at 30 Circle Drive.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields?
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Discussion on the ordinance and emergency clause. Mr. Dutton?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this is a request to increase an existing PO at 30 Circle Drive. It's a CHIP 20 project, which has been underway. The increase will be from $18,400 to $39,500. The need for the increase is to repair damage to some basement walls and foundation. The emergency clause is requested as this is critical to the safety of the home. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance and emergency clause? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the emergency clause?
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Simpson.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Ordinance 207-23 passes 6-0.
Council comments this evening. Well, I'm going to start the council comments off this evening, and I have something to give to Bill, so Bill, can come out front and I can give you the...
This is a zero tolerance work zone. You can't punch him. That's not what you can give him.
Okay, Bill. Well, on behalf of council, we have a little plaque to give you. It says, presented to Bill Lamb, council at large, for a term commencing January 1st, 2012 and ending 12/31/23 in recognition of your service to the city of Medina and to the community, Medina City Council 2023. We appreciate all your service over the last 12 years. And this is something you could probably hang on your wall because you were served as mayor, now you're on council, so you probably have 2 of these. I don't know if you have anything to say, but here's your little plaque, and congratulations, and we appreciate all your service that you've given to the city over the years.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, you can talk. Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bill, I know a lot of the administration has dumped accolades upon you, which is well-deserved. I just want to say that it's been an honor to serve with you for the last 12 years. We've not always agreed on everything, but when we disagreed, we did it respectfully. And I'll always consider you a friend. Again, it's been an honor to serve with you. Medina is a better place because of you. And I wish you and Elaine the best of luck in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
Ms. Hazeltine.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I don't know why all these people are lying about how great Bill is, because we all know it. Just kidding. Bill, you know you have been there for me as a mentor, as a friend, and I can't say anything else because I'll start crying. So thank you for your service. And, you know, Councilman Simpson's right. Medina is a better place, and I know that a lot of it is because of you. Happy holidays. That's all I got.
Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Ms. Coyne. Bill, this is hard because I've actually, I think, known you longer than anybody else in this room. At 11 years old, Mr. Lamb was my 6th grade teacher. I want to thank you for that as being my teacher. I want to thank you for being mayor of Medina and all the great things you did. Mr. Huber did a great recap of some of those things that are still in place today, thanks to you. I want to thank you for 12 years of serving on council together. And I think the theme is that you were my teacher at age 11, and you've been my teacher for the last 12 years. And I appreciate that in 6th grade, I can remember you taught us to look at things differently and from different angles. And I feel like for 12 years on council, you've done that for me too. So it's been full circle for me. I wish you the best. I think the world of your wife and Gretchen and Kristen and Megan. It's just been a pleasure to have people like you and have those people in my life and have you here in Medina. So thank you for everything. Good luck.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks.
Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can't add anything to that, so good luck to you in your retirement. May it be long and prosperous, and good luck to Elaine.
Thank you.
And Merry Christmas to everyone in the city of Medina. Thank you.
Mr. Lamb.
Thank you. I wrote some of this down. I appreciate all your comments. I appreciate all your comments. Obviously, So John, just so you know, this isn't too long. Let me tell you, when I was in college many years ago, I wrote not one, but 2 student government constitutions. I had an idea that if we adopted more of a Greek form of government where everybody had to participate, because I went to a small university, that it would be more inclusive and people had to show up. I thought it was a great idea, and I spent a lot of time trying to configure that into a way that it would work on a university level. It didn't work. Nobody liked it. It didn't pass. No students liked it. I initially came to the conclusion that it was simply the show up part, and then I think I realized later on that it was more about some people actually wanted to have a position in city government that they could be recognized for, not just show up once every couple of weeks and pick a leader and everybody get to vote. So then I wrote the second student government constitution that was more like a typical constitution where you elect people and you have committees and you do all this stuff that they do. But in the end, I think I came to realize that it really wasn't so much about the form of government, having been in local government for the time I've been in, but it's really more about the people that are in the government. So the form within reason matters, but it's really about the people that occupy the spaces in the government. And so 2 things it's important for me to set part of this record straight. I have thoroughly enjoyed being on city council. It's totally different than being mayor. I love the collegial part of council. I love the discussion part of council, the debating part of council. It's a group effort that was fascinating to me. But I never intended to run for a 3rd term because I always felt, everybody has different feelings on this, but I always felt that local government, you come in and you do your thing and then you move on, you get new blood. I ran for the 3rd term only because I was convinced that there was a possibility that the equality legislation that we had recently passed could be overturned. And I had intended not to stay on the 3rd term. I think I made that clear early on. And then when the other issue came up with the deer, I ended up staying for the third term. And then secondly, I guess what I want to do about cleaning up the record is I was reminded really by Greg Huber when he talked a couple weeks ago when I met the new director of the airport, and he talked about how I bought the airport. And I guess my point is that I didn't really buy, I had the idea to do it and I wanted to do it and we were successful. But it wasn't me alone. Every single thing that we do takes so many people to actually make it successful. And so many of those people that have a role in that success never rise up, never get to go to get some credit for it, never get mentioned for their role in it. And so here that I've actually come to the end, kind of came to the coda, this is it, it's important to me, I guess when I look back, to recognize the fact that I can't really help but wonder at the opportunity that I've had to work with just absolutely so many amazing people over the years, both people in and out of government, and mostly with people that share my own commitment to have a governance of purpose and to govern with some passion. Most of the people I worked with when Keith was a little boy, they were council people rooted in the city. They knew the soul of the city, really, and they contributed to as much of what I did as a mayor as I did. And they were thoughtful people. They were committed to diversity like I was, committed to promoting equality. And to those people, I am truly and personally indebted, because whatever success or benefit that came from my time here as mayor or city council, all of that is really just a shared success with all the people that helped me put this together. And among those people, I was talking about before the meeting started, 1, 2, 3, 4, is the fifth person from the right on the wall, which would be Fred Greenwood, who to me was a fascinating story, because from him I think I recognized the necessity of having some passion. And he told me a story early on that when Roshan Boulevard Drive, when Roshan was being built by the developer that put it in wanted to put signs at the entrance to the road to name this development something special. And when Fred Greenwood was mayor, he said he told the developer, "You can't do that. I won't let you put the signs up, because everything in Medina is just about Medina. We are all one city. I don't want things broken up into different enclaves with different names." And so Fred Greenwood and I had a fascinating relationship, because he was an opponent of mine. He intended to get a third term as mayor. He got beat by a 29-year-old kid who nobody seemed to know, which I have, looking back now that I'm older, I understand better how devastating that must have been and surprising to him, how hard that would be to take. But he didn't hold a grudge. He became a mentor. He became a partner. As soon as I was elected mayor, the courthouse was burned down. And within 2 weeks, we had moved the entire municipal court operation into this building. Within a month, we had worked to secure property. And I think within about a year, we had built a courthouse. He is somebody that deserves to be remembered and not to be forgotten as time goes on, for the things that he did. I think he was a transitional mayor in the city, an important figure. We became friends, and I named Greenwood Park after him because of his commitment and his long-term contribution to the city. He was my first president of council. My second president of council was Sally Giovinazzo, and she also became an opponent of mine and ran against me. But then we worked together in a partnership, and when Greg talks about the airport and the railroad, it was my proposal, but it was not easy getting it through council And it was really, and it was Sally Giovinazzo as president of council that got those two things through council. And that is the, part and partnership of the reason that we do have we do have both of those things. We were successful. And then there's Wilda Bell. Wilda Bell was the first person of color to serve only person of color to serve on Medina City Council. She was the president of the city council. She faced unconscionable hurdles while she was here. She was probably the bravest person I have ever met in my entire life, watching what she went through. And honestly, if I had a wish, I would wish that I could bring her back for just one more day and sit down and have a conversation with her. Because when thinking about Mr. Huber's conversation about things that I did, I recalled that I worked on the legislation for the Historic Preservation Board, the legislation that protects the historic district from anything being torn down or changed. I worked on that for 6 years. But it was Wilda Bell who, after 6 years, finally actually got that through council, just about a year before my term was up. And it was Wilda Bell who helped put together, it was Wilda that helped put together and develop the plans and implement the plans to build the fire stations that we have now. I was looking at a picture the other day of the fire station on Route 57. It was just a field in the woods. There was just no houses there. It was just a bunch of us in a field with a shovel. But if I could bring Wilda back just for that one conversation, and her contribution to this community, and then there's John Coyne, who was my fourth council president, not as mayor, who is clearly ended up being a little bit more than just a budget guru. But he turned out to be an amazing partner as well. For the time we worked on the equality legislation, to get that legislation through committee, and then get that legislation to finance, and then finally get that legislation passed, the work that took, and he deserves the lion's share of credit for that, and that's probably my role here, probably what I see as one of the most significant things, other than the mechanics of keeping the things going here. That's one of the most important pieces of legislation I had ever happily been a part of it. And I also want to mention Rick Grice, who I've talked about before. Rick Grice was a planning director, but his service to the city in multiple ways spans decades. And without Rick Grice, without whom, many of the things that we look at in this town, that we really love about this town, those things would not be there, would not be here. And I also want to thank my police chief, Homer Davis. Homer Davis helped me grow the police department, helped get raises for policemen, helped to equip the policemen. He worked to bring the DARE program to Medina and to Medina High School. And he helped me organize the Club Medina Teen program and run that program through the time I was mayor. And Homer Davis also was the guy who sat in the office with me one day and joined me in hiring a young Dennis Hanwell. So there's some really beautiful symmetry to all of this. Also, the law directors that I had, the guidance that I had from people like Judy Cross, I think might have been our only female law director, I'm not sure, became Judge Judy Cross. Roger Ingram, who was the former county prosecutor, the late Tom Phillis, and then now Greg Huber. So in appreciation of these people and the other people throughout the years, all of you who I have worked with for the past 12 years, we have worked with, I hope, a sense of purpose and a sense of passion. And to Councilman Simpson, for his gentle, meeting-ending reminders to simply be kind. I just want to say that I know how lucky I have been to have had all these people, have all of you in my life, and to serve this community for the time that I was allowed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Throughout the time members serve on council, we generally want to be remembered by people by the things that we do. But it's more important to be remembered by people by the things that we don't do. And throughout the time that you served as mayor and council, there's things that we didn't do or you didn't do that could have really changed the city in a different direction, which would not have been a direction which I believe would have been worse than we have today. We have a city today with an historic square that is known throughout the country, and you started that. We have a city today that residents are very proud to be members of, and you were part of that. So I think the message that we have to send is, it's not generally what you want to be known that you did, it's what you want to be known that you didn't do. Because people remember that. If you look out in the audience, most council meetings, nobody shows up. The reason I believe they don't show up is because we, as the council and administration, are doing a good job for the city residents, and they're happy to be here. There's no better compliment than being not called for things that you didn't do wrong. Because most people only call to complain. They don't call to compliment. So that is a better message that I believe that we as a council and administration have achieved, and through your tenure, you were part of that. So for that, I thank you. With that, the meeting is adjourned.